Discover the incredible journey, how one father's love for his pup transformed their lives forever. In the heart of rural Americana, where cornfields swayed in the breeze and sunsets painted the sky in hues of orange and red, lived James, a single father navigating the turbulent waters of loss and adversity. 3 years had passed since the tragic illness that claimed his beloved wife, yet the pain lingered like a shadow. With an 8-year-old son named Benny, their world thrived on laughter and memories, but beneath the surface lay a struggle that weighed heavy on James's shoulders. Every evening in their modest home, Benny's laughter echoed, a sound that warmed the worn walls. James would lean against the kitchen counter, feeling the tightness in his chest ease with each chuckle from Benny. However, the joy was often fleeting. Between working 2 jobs, the dread of financial ruin loomed like a storm cloud. The whispers of the townsfolk cut deeper than any struggle for survival. Single fathers were a rarity here, a community that upheld traditions with an iron grip. One crisp autumn afternoon, everything changed. Benny wandered behind the local grocery store and stumbled upon a scruffy little dog, shaking from the chill. The pup's big, soulful eyes seemed to hold a million untold stories. "Can we keep him, Dad?" Benny pleaded, hope lighting up his face. As they named the dog Max, a spark ignited in their hearts. With each wag of Max's tail, James felt a piece of his spirit awaken. Together, they ventured into the golden light of dwindling days, taking Max to the creek, throwing sticks, and sharing moments of pure delight. James found himself smiling more, the first genuine smile he'd worn in years. Benny would read bedtime stories to Max, the 3 of them snuggling on the couch, the heaviness of life fading into laughter and tails wagging. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as winter skated in with its icy breath, the warm glow of their new life began to dim. On a bleak Monday morning, James received the termination notice from his job, a grim reality slamming into him with the force of a freight train. Bills piled high, the threat of losing the only home they had loomed large. The whispers grew louder, the town's gaze turned more judgmental, looking at him and Benny as just more failed stories woven into their fabric. The tension hit a breaking point at a town meeting packed with curious onlookers. James stood before the council like a warrior ready to battle, but his heart raced. He fought for his dignity and that of his son, pouring out his soul to a community that had turned its back. As his voice cracked with emotion, hope flickered within him, igniting the spark of compassion he desperately needed. With Benny and Max by his side, he faced a town entrenched in biases, determined to reclaim their spirit. But as the meeting concluded and unresolved prejudices simmered, the question lingered, could James unite a broken community, or would he forever be seen as an outcast? With the winds of change swirling around him, James prepared to make a stand, and for the first time in years, hope danced in the air like the last leaves clinging to the branches, waiting to see if love could indeed conquer all. The next morning, James woke up with a restless energy in his chest. The sun was slow to rise, as if it felt the weight of his struggle too. He watched Benny still sleeping, puffing soft breaths beneath the covers, and Max curled at the foot of the bed like a little guardian. A flicker of determination ignited within him. Today had to be different. Coffee brewed in the kitchen while chunks of frost clung to the window panes. The world outside was still and quiet, an eerie calm filling the air. The termination notice from yesterday nipped at his thoughts, urging him to push back harder. He had to provide for Benny, there was no other option. After waking Benny with a gentle shake, they ate breakfast together, the familiar blueberry pancakes bringing a sense of comfort. Benny smeared maple syrup on his plate, his face lighting up with joy. "Dad, can we take Max to the park today?" he asked, his innocent excitement a warm blanket over James's anxiety. "Sure, buddy. We'll go after school," James promised. He forced a smile, knowing that the park would offer a much-needed distraction. After breakfast, they headed out, the cold air biting at their cheeks. At school, Benny's laughter echoed in the hallways, a melody that made James's heart swell. But as he watched his son engage with friends, he caught whispers and sideways glances from other parents. They were talking about him, questioning his ability to raise Benny alone. Each quiet judgment bruised his resolve. That's when he knew he needed to confront not just their biases but also the fears that clung to him like a shadow. Later that afternoon, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky a mix of shimmering gold and deep indigo, they arrived at the park. Max bounded ahead, paws kicking up fallen leaves, radiating happiness. Soon, Benny was running after him. For a moment, it felt like life was right again. Laughter rang above the rustling leaves, and James watched, soaking in the joy. But then his phone buzzed with a notification that pulled him back into reality, a reminder for an upcoming town meeting where he was scheduled to speak again. The whirlwind of emotion swirled within him. It wasn't just a meeting, it was a chance to show the town that he and Benny were worthy of belonging. As he gathered Benny and Max and prepared to leave the park, James drew in a deep breath. "Benny," he started slowly, his voice steady, "I need you to listen to me. I want us to show everyone how strong we can be, together." Benny nodded, understanding in his young eyes. "Can I help?" "Yes," James smiled, gratitude bubbling in his chest. "We'll do this together." That night, after tucking Benny into bed, James sat at the kitchen table, papers strewn about. He planned, sketched, and wrote, visualizing a future not just for them but for the entire town. They would share their story, a story of resilience, love, and community. The next day, as he stood before the council again, James felt Max at his heel and Benny by his side. A nervous energy coursed through him, but he was ready to fight for their place. He opened his mouth to speak, the weight of all those judging eyes upon him. But before he could start, a voice from the crowd interrupted him, sending shivers down his spine. "Why should we care about you, James? What do you really know about being a part of our community?" James's heart pounded as every doubt crept back in. Would his efforts be in vain? Could he face the town once again? Their unease clashed with his willingness to stand tall. In that moment of uncertainty, James realized he had one chance to change everything. Would he rise to the occasion, armed with love and determination, or would old fears keep him shackled? James's breath caught in his throat as eyes shifted to him like a spotlight illuminating the darkest corners of his mind. His palms felt damp against the rough surface of the podium, uncertainty crowding in like the townspeople before him. They were waiting. Waiting for an answer, for a reason, for something that would put their unease to rest. He glanced at Benny, who stood beside him, small yet unwavering. The innocence in his son's gaze reminded James of why he was truly here. With Max nudging his leg, urging him onward with quiet loyalty, he knew he had to find his voice. Because, James finally spoke, each word flowing more easily than he expected, "I know how it feels to love fiercely." His voice steadied, pushing back against the tide of judgment. "I know the responsibility that comes when you're a single parent, the late nights spent worrying about the fridge being empty, or how to keep your child's future bright. I'm not just here to take up space. I'm here because I believe in us, my son and me. I believe in community." The murmurs in the crowd faded as he continued. Memories flooded him, Saturday mornings spent at the diner, the way Benny's laughter filled the air, the warmth of their little home swirled with love despite the weight of worry. He spoke of those moments with passion, of everyday life painted across the canvas of their struggle. "We may not fit perfectly into your category of a family," he acknowledged, swallowing hard, "but we are a family. We're just asking for a chance to be accepted, to be part of this community. We want to contribute, to grow." As James's words washed over the audience, he caught snippets of their expressions, surprise, contemplation, even a flicker of empathy in some faces. He was breaking through, bit by bit, shifting their perceptions. "And I also know what it feels like to have a companion through it all." He bent down and ruffled Max's fur, drawing laughter from the crowd. "These two, my son and my dog, have shown me strength and resilience like no one else. They've taught me that love knows no bounds. Together, We've faced our challenges, and together we emerge stronger. With every sentence, he felt the doubts within him quieting, making room for the fire inside to illuminate the path forward. Finally, he looked directly into the crowd. We're all different, but that doesn't lessen our ability to care, to help, and to connect. I stand here, not just for myself and Benny but for the countless others who feel different, who feel unsure of their place. Let us break down the barriers. Silence hung in the air, thick and expectant. James held his breath, anticipating responses, no longer just afraid of judgment. This was their moment. The community needed to choose whether to embrace change or cling to old biases. Then, in the back, an older woman finally spoke, her voice breaking the stillness. I remember when I was different too. We all started out somewhere. Her eyes shone with unhidden hope. A ripple of nods spread through the crowd, and for the first time, James sensed a bridge forming, visible yet fragile. As applause began to swell, heartbeats and breathing quickened in tandem, James felt something awaken within him, a relentless hope for a future where acceptance reigned. Was it truly possible? Could they carve their place in this town despite the doubts cast upon them? As they left the meeting, Benny's excited chatter filled the air, buoying James's heart. Did you see them, Dad? They liked what you said. Yes, my boy, James whispered as they walked, Max happily trotting alongside. But we've only just begun. The daylight was fading, but the flicker of possibility remained bright in James's chest. Would he and Benny's story resonate beyond this moment? Would they continue to impact change, drawing their community closer? He glanced at Benny, determination solidifying within. Tomorrow, we'll talk to more people, he said. We'll keep pushing forward. And deep down, James realized the journey was only just beginning. The next morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight spilling across the kitchen table where Benny poured himself a bowl of cereal. The clinking of the spoon against the bowl mixed with Max's eager paws scratching the floor, waiting for his morning meal. James watched them, a soft smile tugging at his lips. This was their rhythm, simple and comforting. Today, however, promised something more, a chance to reshape their world. Finish up, buddy, he called to Benny, who was blissfully lost in thought, staring out the window with a spoon poised midair. We've got a big day ahead. Benny snapped back to the moment, his eyes lighting up. Are we going to talk to Mr. Thompson at the diner? He asked, excitement bubbling through his words. James nodded. Yes. He has been there forever. If anyone knows the heart of this town, it's him. The diner felt like home, a place where faces were familiar, and laughter mingled with the aroma of coffee and bacon. It was a good starting point. After breakfast, they hopped into James's old truck, Max jumping in eagerly as if sensing the adventure. The drive was quick, the road lined with trees just beginning to change color with the hint of fall. As they parked and stepped out, a wave of nostalgia washed over James. Memories flooded in, dates with Jenny, the laughter of friends, the way the diner made him feel alive. They pushed through the doors, and the welcoming smells enveloped them like a warm hug. Mr. Thompson, behind the counter, looked up, his gray hair neatly combed, eyes twinkling like they always did. Well, look who it is. He boomed. James, Benny, and Max. What a trio. Benny grinned wide. Hi, Mr. Thompson. We came to ask you something. Mr. Thompson wiped his hands on his apron, leaning down to Benny's level. Shoot, kiddo. Taking a deep breath, James stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, do you remember the meeting last night? Sure do. You did a great job, he replied, and James felt warmth spread through him. Encouragement, that's what it meant. We're hoping to talk to folks around town, James continued, his heart racing. To share our story and help people understand that different doesn't mean less. Mr. Thompson nodded, his expression thoughtful. You're onto something here, son. A lot of folks are still stuck in their ways, but sometimes all it takes is a good cup of coffee and an honest conversation. James felt hope swell in his chest. Would you help us? Maybe host a little gathering here at the diner? The older man's eyes sparkled. Why not? I'd be glad to. We could do it next weekend. A community brunch. Your story deserves to be heard. As the idea sunk in, Benny bounced on his feet. That is so cool. Everyone can come and have pancakes. Yes. James exclaimed, and Max barked, sensing the excitement. They were taking action, the plans were forming, and with each new idea, they felt closer to making a difference. Over the next hour, they mapped it all out, paper and pens scattered across the table as Mr. Thompson jotted down names, places, and ideas. Benny's laughter echoed off the walls, filling the diner with a kind of energy that ignited more than James ever expected. Afterward, as they made their way back to the truck, a heady mix of nerves and excitement filled the air. Tomorrow, it would all begin. Do you think people will really come? Benny asked, his face shifted to seriousness. James squeezed his shoulder. I believe they will, buddy. It starts with us being brave. It starts with love. That night, as James tucked Benny into bed, he replayed the day's events in his mind. What if people didn't show? What if they rejected them? But he shook the doubts away. No matter the outcome, the seed of change had already taken root. As he turned off the light, he felt the weight of what they were doing. The anticipation coursed through him. Tomorrow was not just another day, it was the day they reached out into the community in a way they had never dared before. But just as he left the room, the phone rang, cutting through the silence, an unexpected twist waiting to unfold. Who could it be? James hesitated, his heart racing at the unexpected ring of the phone. He glanced back at Benny, who had already drifted into a dreamland filled with pancakes and laughter. With a deep breath, James steeled himself and picked up the receiver. Hello? He said, forcing his voice to remain steady. James, the voice on the other end was familiar yet filled with urgency. It was Alex, an old friend from high school. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. No, not at all. James leaned against the wall, a slight frown creasing his brow. What's going on? I just got wind of something. It might affect your plans for the brunch. Alex's voice lowered, almost conspiratorial. There's talk around town some folks aren't happy about what you're trying to do. A knot formed in James's stomach. What do you mean? There's this group, I think they're planning to protest or push back against your gathering. They don't want change, James. They're scared of it. James's mind raced. He had expected challenges, but not hostility. But we're just trying to share a good story and show that different is okay. Why would anyone protest that? Because they fear what they don't understand. Don't underestimate how resistant people can be, Alex warned. I wanted to give you a heads up. You might want to rally a few supporters, just in case. James felt a wave of frustration wash over him. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate the warning. He hung up, his mind churning. This was supposed to be a day of hope and connection. As he stepped back into the dim light of Benny's room, he watched his son sleeping peacefully. Benny's innocent dreams contrasted sharply with the brewing storm outside, one that could derail their efforts before they even began. He felt the weight of his responsibility like a heavy blanket. What if they were met with protests instead of pancakes? James's heart sank. The days of building a brighter, more understanding world began to feel daunting. The next morning, they would need to strategize. This wasn't just about sharing their story anymore. It was about confronting fear and ignorance head-on. What if they could turn this perceived threat into an opportunity? James decided to call a few friends to help rally the community. They needed strength in numbers, people willing to support them, to share their commitment to understanding and acceptance. He couldn't let fear dictate their path. But as he made his way downstairs, the weight of doubt shadowed him. What if he failed to protect Benny? What if the very people they sought to embrace turned against them? Tomorrow might not go as we planned, but we've got to stand tall, he whispered to himself, stroking Max's fur. The dog looked up, sensing his turmoil, as if to say that love and loyalty would guide them. As the night deepened, James felt a flicker of resolve spark within him. He would face whatever came their way. But would the community rally behind them, or would they clash in fear? He closed his eyes, wishing for tomorrow to come with clarity. Change was never easy, but he was ready to fight for what he believed in. What started as a simple brunch had become a battleground of ideals. James knew it was time to gather their allies, but deep down, he wondered, could love outshine the darkness? The morning light crept through the curtains, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. James woke with a start, the urgency of the day crashing down on him. Today wasn't just any day, it was the day he had hoped would be filled with laughter and pancakes, but now loomed like a storm cloud hanging over his head. He glanced at Benny, still snug in his blankets. The little boy was flipping through his dreams, blissfully unaware of the chaos that could greet them later. James smiled softly, feeling a surge of affection for his son. It was a reminder of why he was standing his ground, but worry not at him. What kind of world was he leaving for Benny? After a quick breakfast that was more chaotic than calm, James gathered his scattered thoughts and made a list. He needed to reach out to the right people. Friends who understood the importance of love, acceptance, and connection. He blew through the list of contacts, sending out messages and making calls, each one more determined than the last. One friend, Tasha, immediately agreed to help. "I'll spread the word, James. We cannot let fear win today," she declared, her voice dripping with defiance. Her enthusiasm reignited his spirit, yet a flicker of doubt still lingered. Would it be enough? By late morning, messages of support started flooding in. Some offered words of encouragement, others promised to show up and bring their families. Each text offered solace, reminding him that they were not alone in the fight for understanding. But as noon approached, a sinking feeling clawed at his gut. News of potential opposition was everywhere. James had seen photos online of the group that planned to rally against them. They were eerily organized, armed with signs and fervor. For every supportive message, there was a call that reminded him of those who stood against change. The clock ticked down, and the tension in his chest tightened. James felt the weight of Benny's future pressing on his shoulders. Would he shield him from this fear? Would he protect his innocent heart from the harsh realities people could throw? "Dad?" Benny's sleepy voice broke through the haze of worry. The sound of his son's giggle as he attempted to wrestle with Max, their loyal dog, pulled James back to the present. "Yeah, buddy? Can we have pancakes before everyone comes?" Benny's eyes sparkled with excitement. James chuckled, a glimmer of normalcy breaking through the storm. "Absolutely. You ready to make them with me?" The two got to work, flour dusting the counters as they mixed batter and chatted about Benny's dream adventures. Yet even amidst the laughter, James couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at him. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and James felt his heart leap. Could it be someone arriving to support them? His hope surged as he opened the door, but instead, he faced a small group of familiar faces, stern and determined. "James," one woman spoke up, her voice filled with urgency. "We want to talk about what's happening today. Things could get ugly, and we need to decide how to handle this." The conversation was serious and sobering. The sense of community he had hoped for suddenly felt fractured, as concerns about safety overshadowed the love they intended to showcase. The chatter became a whirlwind of opinions, fears, and suggestions, filling the air with a tension that felt almost unbearable. As James stood in the middle of it all, with Benny's innocent laughter fading into the background, he wondered, was a peaceful gathering even possible anymore? Could they truly stand against the tide of anger and negativity, or was fate about to deal them a hard lesson in resilience? James inhaled deeply, his mind racing. Today was about more than pancakes, it was about standing firm for what mattered. But could he rally not just his friends but a community to believe in love, even in the face of opposition? With a glance back at Benny, who was now only half listening as he flipped through storybooks, James felt a renewed sense of urgency. He had to find a way to make them see. What would he say to unite them all before things spiraled out of control? And did he have the strength to guide them through the storm? The murmur of voices filled the living room, but it was a cacophony of tension, not the joy James had envisioned for the day. Faces around him wore expressions of concern, fists clenched, brows furrowed. The safety of their children overshadowed the very purpose of their gathering. "I don't want Benny around that group, it's too dangerous," said a father, his voice shaky. "We should just call it off." "But what message does that send?" Tasha countered, her words sharp but laced with fear. "They win if we back down. Our kids need to see us standing up for what's right." James felt the weight of their eyes on him. His heart raced as he opened his mouth, searching for the right words, a rallying cry, a beacon of hope. "We can't let them define what today means for us." He could sense the uncertainty around him. Could he really change minds? Benny wandered over, his hands sticky with pancake batter, a grin stretched across his face. "Daddy, can we have shapes in our pancakes? Stars and hearts?" The tension in the room softened for a moment, the innocence of his request drawing smiles from the worried adults. James turned to his son. "Of course, buddy. Let us make them special." Tension eased and laughter broke through, if only for a minute. As everyone pulled together to make bright pancakes, James was reminded of what truly mattered. The gathering wasn't just about protest, it was about love, acceptance, and showing their children that they believed in a brighter future. Though doubts lingered in his mind, he decided to embrace the spirit of the day. "Listen," James called out to the group, his hands resting on the counter, flour dusted on his shirt. "This is bigger than just us. Today is for our children, for Benny, and all his friends. We need to show them that love overcomes hate." Nods started to appear among the group. "Yeah, we need them to see how strong we are together," one mother remarked. With renewed hope, they gathered around a table covered with colorful pancake shapes. A sentiment born out of familiarity and warmth spread. They shared ideas, worried but empowered. Perhaps fear wouldn't dictate their actions today. Maybe they genuinely could create a safe space filled with love. As they transformed batter into joyful shapes, more friends began to arrive, filling the house with laughter and cheerful energy. James watched Benny run into each embrace, his innocence untouched. But just as James felt the tide turning, a loud shout ricocheted from outside. A voice pierced through the laughter, angry and condemning. "You think you can just celebrate this? Not on my watch." James' heart dropped. The lightness of the room evaporated, replaced with apprehension. He exchanged glances with Tasha, who nodded in understanding. The day had shifted. The moment of truth loomed large. They could either stand proud and face the storm or retreat into silence, allowing fear to win. With his heart pounding, James gathered everyone's attention again. "We have to stay focused. We can't let them disrupt what we've built here." But would the group muster the courage to unite and show love in the face of hostility? Would they rally as one for the sake of their children, reinforcing their commitment to community and understanding? Outside, the shouting grew louder, echoing the uncertainty in James' heart. In that moment, the resolve hung thick in the air, as they prepared to face whatever came next together. Would their courage hold when faced with adversity, or would fear fracture the bonds they had just strengthened? James felt the air shift as the fear seeped back in, heavier than the day's earlier laughter. The argument outside intensified. Angry voices mingled with children's giggles, creating a heartbreaking discord. He clenched his fists, the warmth of the pancakes now forgotten, replaced by a chill of uncertainty. "Maybe we should just do it another time," another father suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. The hesitation was palpable, a virus that spread through the room. Was all this effort, all this love, to be dismantled by the loud dissent outside? "No," James said, firmer this time. "Do we really want to show our kids that fear can dictate our choices? We're here for a reason. Let us not let them tear us apart." His heart raced, not just from the fear but with the fire of determination that ignited within him. He looked at the faces around him. They were tired, scared, and worried. A gentle squeeze of Benny's hand reminded him what really mattered. Our kids need to see us together, standing tall, despite the anger out there. This is a lesson for them. It's about being strong, being unified. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Tasha stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with resolve. You're right. We can't back down now. Let us show them what love looks like. James's heart swelled with gratitude. He caught sight of the parents nodding, exchanging glances, silently encouraging one another. They weren't just a collection of families, they had become a community, ready to face the storm. Outside, the shouting continued, but James could feel the rhythm change inside. They started to push the colorful shapes onto plates, adding whipped cream and sprinkles. Each pancake became a symbol of resilience and joy. The laughter slowly returned to the room, as if they were pushing back the darkness. A mother held up a bug-shaped pancake. Look. This one's brave, just like us. Laughter erupted, breaking through the tension, sparks of hope igniting in their hearts. Yeah. Benny chimed in. Let us make them all brave. The playful chatter faded the anger outside, if only momentarily, and soon families were gathered at the tables, flipping pancakes, sharing stories, bonding through a bittersweet sense of purpose. Then, a loud crash came from outside. The sound of shattering glass echoed like thunder, and a collective gasp filled the room. James felt the blood drain from his face. A knot formed in his stomach. We need to stick together. No one should go out there alone. He scrambled toward the window to peek outside, weighing the situation. Through the soft sunlight filtering in, he could see angry faces hunched together, shouting, but he couldn't spot what had broken. Stay back. He called to the group, raising a hand. If we go outside in fear, we'll show them they're winning. Tasha moved to stand beside him. We need a plan. If they come here, we have to know how to respond. Her words ignited a fire in the hearts of those gathered. They began discussing their options. Unity transformed into action. Plans were drafted, voices raised in solidarity. A brave father spoke up, we are not just going to sit back and let love be silenced. We are going to face this together. James felt a swell of pride. They weren't just fighting for their gathering, they were fighting for the future of their children. Then, just as they found their strength, the doorbell rang. A sudden stillness fell as every joint gaze turned toward the door. Panic crept back in. Who could it be? Was this confrontation brewing outside finally coming home? Should we open it? One mother whispered, fear evident in her voice. James stepped forward, heart racing. Should they show fear? Or face whatever awaited them? He took a deep breath, remembering Benny's innocent joy, and felt a burst of determination. Whatever it is, we face it. Together. When he opened the door, would he find help or more hostility? James grasped the doorknob, the cold metal sending a shiver up his spine. Behind him, breaths were held. Just as he turned it, a chorus of whispers filled the room, each one laced with a mix of hope and trepidation. He opened the door slowly, ready for whatever lay beyond. Standing on the porch was a tall figure, silhouetted by the sun. James squinted, trying to make out the features. It was someone he recognized but hadn't seen in years. It was Tom, the old neighbor from down the street, dubious eyes peering from beneath a faded baseball cap. He looked weary but resolute, as if he had mustered every ounce of courage to stand there. Tom? James asked, wonder and confusion flashing across his face. Hey, James, Tom replied, an edge of urgency in his voice. I heard what's going on. I thought I'd come see if you needed any help. Relief washed over James, but he could sense that it wasn't a simple visit. It's getting pretty heated out there. We're trying to protect our kids and stand together. Tom nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I get it. I've been watching the turmoil and felt helpless. It's time we stood up as neighbors rather than just living side by side. Can I come in? James stepped aside, emotions swirling, part gratitude, part distrust. The reassuring warmth of pancakes and laughter had become a backdrop to this new uncertainty. As Tom walked in, the chatter paused, all eyes narrowing in on the unexpected guest. I know there's a lot going on, Tom began, attempting to bridge the silence. But your gathering today is important. We have to show them that love is louder than hate. That we want to be pushed around. A spark ignited once more. Parents exchanged wary glances but felt a shared sense of purpose bubbling up. They hadn't come this far to bow down. Do you have any ideas? One father asked, stepping forward. Tools, something to protect our families? Tom shifted his weight, contemplating. We can start a community watch. Get everyone involved. If we stay visible, we send them a message. They might think twice before causing trouble. A murmur of agreement resonated in the room. James felt his heart swell with renewed hope. Exactly. We keep our families together and our spirits high. Suddenly, a loud roar cut through the air, followed by raucous laughter and indistinct shouting from outside. The voices grew louder, almost taunting. They're not just angry, they're angry with resolve. Another mother exclaimed, clutching her child tighter. James's heart raced again. This is it, then. It would be reckless to show weakness. We protect our own, and we face this together. An energy shifted, filling them with courage. The children, oblivious to the darkness outside, buzzed around the safe space that was their home, laughter echoing against the wall like a defiant shield. James looked around, seeing neighborly bonds form as they planned their counter to the growing threat. Just then, Benny bounded up to him with a pancake proudly balanced on his tiny plate. Look, Dad. It's brave, like us. He grinned through sticky syrup, innocence shining in his eyes. The room brightened with murmurs of love and laughter, but James still felt the weight of the world pressing upon them. Could their love and unity really shield them from what awaited outside? Would it be enough to stand up against fear? As their plan solidified, a resounding crash echoed again, this time accompanied by a roar of anger. The children's laughter turned to frightened gasps. James felt the room's atmosphere shift as the adults looked towards the door with trepidation. Stay together! He shouted, his voice steady, but internally shaking. Would what they built today withstand the storm brewing outside? Would they be brave enough to protect their families? Suddenly, another knock thundered against the door, more demanding than the last. James turned to face the group, the stakes rising. This time, it felt like everything was on the line. Is it time for us to show the world our strength? He whispered, barely audible over the pounding. It was a question that hung in the air, heavy with possibilities. As he reached for the door again, what would he confront? Would he find the strength they possessed, or would they be met by the crushing weight of their fears? As James turned the doorknob again, every heart in the room beat as one. Families stood close, eyes wide, holding their breath. This was the moment where love could either burst forth or falter under the pressure. James took a final deep breath, ready to confront whatever awaited them. He swung the door open, revealing a sea of faces, some familiar, others not. Many were neighbors, but a few were definitely part of that angry group, fierce and loud, holding signs that sported slogans of ignorance and fear. But amidst this crowd stood some friends, waving encouragingly, pulling back the shadows threatening to engulf them. James! A familiar voice rang out across the frenzy. It was Mrs. Carter from 3 houses down, her determined demeanor shining bright. We've got your back. A chorus of supportive shouts erupted from the crowd. Several more friendly faces stepped forward, standing resolutely beside James. Hope flickered, igniting a fire within him. He took a step forward, legs firm beneath him. He raised his hands and shouted, "We're here for love. For acceptance. We will not back down." The strength of those words reverberated against the fear surrounding them. The crowd paused, taken aback by this unexpected tide of support. James could see confusion in the eyes of those protesting too. They hadn't expected the sheer strength of community that now stood before them. Everyone here wants the same thing for our children to feel safe, James continued, his voice unwavering. With Benny at his side, holding his hand tightly, he felt empowered and filled with purpose. We all want love and understanding to be the foundation upon which we build our lives. The hostile crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, uncertainty creeping into the once boisterous shouting. Is that so wrong? James pressed on. Why must we fear each other when we can embrace our differences? I stand here with my son and my dog, fighting for a brighter future for all of us. And just like that, the air began to shift. Those standing beside James began to cheer, bolstered by his bravery. They shouted out their support, their voices mingling into a powerful anthem of unity. The hostile group hesitated, caught between anger and realization. In that moment, a brave mother stepped out from the crowd, offering a resolute smile. We stand here together to celebrate our differences. We are stronger united. With that support, James felt the tides beginning to change. The protesters shifted on their feet, exchanging uncertain glances. They were met with warmth, joy, and courage instead of fear. James grasped Benny's hand tightly, a sense of joy swelling in his heart. This was his family, this was their community, and love was triumphing over the darkness. Suddenly, a hesitant voice called out from the back. It was the woman who had been leading the dissent, her brow furrowed. But this town, it's always been a certain way. Why change it? James didn't hesitate. Change is inevitable. But it can be good. Look around. Love doesn't mean losing who you are, it means expanding it to include others. Everyone deserves a place where they belong. The crowd began to shift. The once hostile faces softened, doubt giving way to contemplation. Neighbors nudged each other, whispering, reflecting. Shouldn't we all enjoy freedom, love, and laughter together? A voice from among the supportive crowd called out. Let us hear what everyone has to say. The tide was turning, and the moment felt electric. James saw Benny's eyes shining bright, filled with hope. This was their chance to rewrite the narrative of their community. With the community members stepping forward to share their own stories, their hearts were laid bare. Words of acceptance and resilience flew across the gathering, and the boundaries erected by fear began to dissolve. As the families began to resonate with one another, warmth and compassion filled the space, creating a tapestry woven from their differences. Together, they could create a community built on understanding, acceptance, and love. They had each other's backs while there. Children played around them, laughter spilling forth like sunshine. And in that moment, both James and Benny realized that they were not just warriors, they were creators of something profound. They were weaving a new legacy built on connection, laughter, and love. As the sun lowered in the sky, painting everything in rich hues of orange and gold, the fear began to dissipate. The group that had arrived with hostility slowly backed away, unsure of their footing amidst this sea of support. Raising his voice, James declared, "This isn't just about pancakes anymore, it's about our children. Let us show them how powerful love truly is." The gathered community erupted in applause, brought together under a banner of love and connection. With beaming smiles, encouragement flowed from one person to another, creating an unbreakable bond. A sense of dignity and hope pulsed through, and in that moment, James and Benny stood tall, surrounded by their community. It wasn't just a gathering, it was a transformation. Change had arrived, sweeping away the old prejudices, and in its wake, a deep sense of belonging had emerged. Together, James said, with tears of joy streaming down his cheeks, we will build a community worthy of our love. The cheer that erupted harmonized with the laughter of children, echoing across the sunset-lit streets, marking the beginning of a new era. James held Benny close, feeling the warmth swell in his heart. A journey that began in loneliness had blossomed into something beautiful, a united community wrapped in compassion. As they looked towards the horizon, they knew their story of resilience would echo through generations, teaching that love overcomes all. And as the stars began to paint the night sky, James knew deep down, love indeed conquers all. If this touching journey inspired you, now is the time to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Don't wait not even one more second. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and let the world hear these important messages. Comment your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heartwarming transformation. Your support is the power behind stories like this. Let us keep love alive together.